Picture this. It is, it's the dead of night in a small, just suffocatingly oppressive village.
Right.
The heat of June is absolutely unbearable.
Yeah.
We're talking about the kind of heat that literally cracks the earth and drives people to the edge of madness.
Yeah, that really heavy, oppressive summer heat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the village pond, which is the absolute last source of water for this desperate, starving community, has just been blocked off.
By a corrupt official.
By a corrupt official. And then the tension it snaps. In the darkness, a murder takes place. A man steps forward, and his hands are gripping a bloody axe. But the thing is, he hasn't killed for money.
No, not at all.
He hasn't killed for revenge in the traditional sense either. He has struck down this official to save his entire community from systematic starvation.
It's incredible.
He is totally ready to swing from the gallows so long as his village survives.
It's a striking and incredibly complex scenario. What makes that moment so completely compelling is the sheer calculation behind the violence. The man with the axe isn't acting in a blind rage, you know? He is making a deliberate, tactical sacrifice against a system that has left him with absolutely no other leverage.
It's chilling. Welcome to the Simplified Summary YouTube channel. If you are joining us today, we humbly ask that you please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share your valuable comments below.
Please do.
It really greatly helps us in bringing more of these incredibly detailed deep dives to life for you.
It really does make a huge difference.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, our mission is to journey into the heart of early 20th century India.
Yeah.
We're going through the legendary Hindi novel called Premashram by the iconic author Premchand.
Such a crucial piece of literature.
It really is. And just so you know, we're using the 2020 digital edition text as our grounding source today.
Right.
So for those who might not be familiar with early Indian literature, who exactly is Premchand and why is this specific text so significant to dive into?
Well, Premchand is often referred to as the voice of the Indian peasantry, and honestly, it's for very good reason.
How so?
Well, before him, a lot of Hindi and Urdu literature was heavily focused on fantastical romances.
Like fairy tales.
Yeah, fairy tales, royal courts, complex mythology, stuff that was very detached from everyday life.
Got it.
Premchand, whose actual pen name was Dhanpat Rai, by the way, completely shattered that mold. He dragged literature down into the dust and the mud of the real villages.
I made it gritty.
Very gritty. And Premashram was published in 1922. This was during a period of massive agrarian unrest in India.
So the timing is key here.
Absolutely. We are going to act as your guides through this very complex social landscape today. We'll be looking at the explosive friction between the wealthy landlords.
The Zamindars, right?
Yes, the Zamindars. The friction between them, the desperately poor peasant class, and this new generation of Western-educated youth.
Right. And just to set the ground rules for you listening,
Yeah.
we are analyzing this purely through a literary and historical lens.
Yeah.
The text deals with heavy political, class, and economic conflicts. There's a lot of charged stuff in here. So we are impartially exploring the viewpoints contained in the original source material. We aren't taking sides.
We're just the messengers.
Exactly. Our goal is to help you understand the historical dynamics, the economic pressures, and the deep philosophical questions about wealth and labor that this novel raises.
It's going to be a fascinating journey.
So let's start where the novel starts. Premchand drops us straight into Lakhanpur, which is a large village just north of Benares.
Yeah.
What exactly are we looking at when we walk into this village? Paint that picture for us.
Well, Premchand paints a picture of absolute bone-deep exhaustion.
Wow.
It's evening. The text describes the tired bullocks returning from the fields, their heads hanging low.
Just totally spent.
Completely spent. And the smoke is just starting to rise from the thatched huts. But it's really important to understand who actually lives in these huts.
Okay, who are they?
The novel specifically notes that the primary inhabitants belong to the Kurmi and Thakur communities.
I want to pause there, actually, because for an international audience, or really anyone unfamiliar with the region, those terms might not mean much.
That's a fair point.
What role do the Kurmis and Thakurs actually play in this society?
That is crucial context to have. So in the traditional caste and social structure of the region, the Kurmis are primarily an agriculturalist caste.
Okay.
They are the cultivators. They're the people actually out there working the soil generation after generation.
The ones driving the tired bullocks.
Precisely. The Thakurs traditionally belong to the landowning or warrior class.
So they have a bit more historical status.
They do. However, in the context of Lakhanpur in this novel, the overarching power doesn't lie with the village-level communities at all.
It doesn't.
No, it lies entirely with the absentee landlords and the visiting government officials.
Okay.
So even if you have a traditional hierarchy within the village itself...
It doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't matter. The moment an official from the colonial bureaucracy arrives, that local hierarchy is completely flattened.
Flattened by the sheer weight of state power.
Exactly.
And we see that state power arrive almost immediately in this story.
We really do.
The peasants have been working themselves to the bone all day in the fields. But when these local government officials ride into town, the village elders don't get to go home to their families.
No rest for them.
None. The text notes they have spent their entire day running behind the horses of these officials.
Because their survival depends entirely on appeasing this bureaucracy.
It's awful.
It's a very precarious existence. The officials represent the colonial tax collection apparatus and the legal system.
They hold all the cards.
All of them. If you anger them, they can ruin you with a stroke of a pen.
Which brings us to a fascinating conversation around a campfire.
Yes, this scene is great.
We have the village elders Manohar, Sukhu, who is also called Mahako, and Dukranfagat.
Right.
They are passing around a water pipe, and they're discussing the blatant corruption of these officials.
They see right through it.
They do. There is a specific observation they make about the local Tahsildar, which is a tax revenue officer.
Right, the Tahsildar.
Dukran points out that this man used to be thin, but in just 2 years of holding his post, he has grown heavily fat.
The villagers are incredibly observant here.
They are.
They literally attribute his physical weight gain to a strict diet of bribes and illegal extortions.
Like he's literally eating the corruption.
Yes. Sukhu argues that the money from bribes, quote, puffs up the body.
Is such a vivid image.
It's a very literal manifestation of greed. But Sukhu takes this observation a step further. He offers this profound, almost cynical analysis of formal education.
I want to ask about that.
Yeah.
Because the villagers are largely unlettered, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
mostly uneducated in the formal sense.
And society is constantly telling them that these educated officials are their superiors, simply because they have degrees.
That was the colonial narrative, yes.
So how does Sukhu view that education? Does he buy into it?
Not at all. What's fascinating here is that Sukhu views it completely pragmatically. He argues that formal education doesn't instill morality at all.
It just makes them smarter criminals.
Basically, yes. He says it simply equips these men with the sophisticated tools needed to steal other people's wealth more effectively.
Wow.
If we break down his argument, he's saying that an illiterate man might lose his own money because he can't do the math.
Right.
But the educated man learns how to legally, systematically, and mathematically take the money of others.
It's basically the 1920s agrarian equivalent of saying a man with a briefcase can steal more money than a man with a gun.
That is a perfect modern analogy. That's exactly it.
It's so perceptive.
Premchand is questioning the very nature of colonial-era education here.
Was it meant to help or hurt?
Exactly. Was the system designed to enlighten the populace, or was it meticulously designed to create a class of administrators who could extract wealth from the peasantry with bureaucratic precision?
It seems like the latter.
To the villagers of Lakhanpur, the law isn't about justice. It's a highly sophisticated mechanism engineered for their own robbery.
And that robbery isn't just an abstract concept on a tax ledger.
No, it's very real.
It's immediate, it's physical, and it targets their very sustenance. Which leads us to the inciting incident of the novel.
The Ghee incident.
The demand for ghee.
Yes.
So a corrupt peon, a low-ranking enforcement official named Giridhar Maharaj, swaggers into the village.
Just walks right in like he owns the place.
Right. And he demands that the villagers supply ghee, which is clarified butter, for the Zamindar's upcoming feast.
And he doesn't just ask nicely.
No, he demands it at vastly reduced, entirely unfair rates.
To understand the weight of this demand, we really have to look at the agrarian economy of the time.
Okay, let's look at it. Because ghee seems like just an ingredient to us today.
Right, but back then, ghee wasn't a luxury item for these villagers. It is a vital, calorie-dense component of their own meager nutrition.
They need it to survive the heavy labor.
Absolutely. And it's one of the few high-value products they can actually sell to survive.
It's their cash crop, essentially.
In a way, yes. Producing ghee requires keeping cattle, feeding them, milking them, and a very lengthy churning process.
A lot of work.
It represents immense labor.
So, forcing them to sell it at a fraction of its market value isn't just a minor inconvenience.
Not at all.
It is literally taking food out of their children's mouths to fund a lavish, extravagant party for the wealthy landlords.
Precisely. It is forced confiscation under the guise of a commercial transaction.
It's theft.
It is. Most of the villagers grumble about it, but they meekly submit.
Because what else can they do?
Right, the threat of state violence or eviction is just too high. But Manohar, one of the elders we mentioned, he refuses.
He draws a line in the sand.
He does. He states plainly that he hardly has enough milk for his own family, let alone to sell it at extortionate rates to the landlord.
He flat out refuses to bow down.
It's a huge moment.
It's such a small interaction on the surface, literally an argument over butter. But the stakes are incredibly high.
Extremely high.
Imagine working from before dawn until past dusk, and some mid-level bureaucrat demands the most valuable thing you've produced all month, simply because someone with a title wants to throw a party.
It's infuriating. Manohar's refusal is really about dignity.
Yeah.
It is a calculated risk. He knows the potential consequences, but the economic and psychological pressure has reached a point where he decides to push back.
He just can't take it anymore.
Right. It is the first tremor of an impending social earthquake that is going to shake Lakhanpur to its core.
This level of casual extortion at the village level really makes you wonder who is pulling the strings at the top.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, who are these landlords demanding so much from starving people?
We have to look at the source.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To understand that, we have to leave the mud huts of Lakhanpur and travel to the deteriorating, once grand mansions of the Zamindars near the city.
This is where Premchand introduces us to the family that actually controls Lakhanpur.
The puppet masters.
Yes. And he brilliantly uses the physical state of their mansion to reflect the moral and economic state of its inhabitants.
It's falling apart, isn't it?
It is. The mansion is essentially divided into two halves, reflecting a house deeply ideologically fractured.
Let's start with the old guard, represented by Lala Prabhashankar.
Yeah, Prabhashankar.
He is a fascinating, almost tragic figure. He represents the fading, traditional feudal lord.
Very old school.
Very. The man is absolutely drowning in debt. The family's wealth is mostly gone, sold off, or mortgaged over the years, but he clings to his ancestral pride with a death grip.
He really does. The defining detail that Premchand provides here revolves around a religious ceremony.
The feast, right?
Yes. Prabhashankar is planning a massive feast for 1,000 Brahmins to mark the death anniversary of his late brother, Gyanshankar.
1,000 Brahmins, that's a massive undertaking.
It is, and the estimated cost for this feast is 2,000 rupees.
Okay, just to put that in perspective for you listening, how much was 2,000 rupees back then?
In the 1920s Indian agrarian economy, 2,000 rupees was an astronomical fortune.
Like life-changing money.
A peasant might see a few rupees in an entire year.
Wow.
Yet Prabhashankar is willing to plunge his family further into ruinous debt for a single event.
Just for one party. Why?
Because for the traditional feudal lord, financial solvency is secondary to social standing.
It's all about optics.
Yes, honor, reputation, and upholding the traditions of hospitality and religious duty in the community are worth infinitely more than cash in the bank.
That's a completely different mindset.
It is. He operates on a moral economy where wealth exists to be shared to buy prestige.
But then, stepping into the other half of the mansion, we meet the new breed.
His nephew.
Right, his nephew, Gyanshankar. If Prabhashankar is the past, Gyanshankar is the incredibly ruthless future.
He is terrifying in a modern way.
He really is. He is Western educated, holding a BA degree. He is ambitious, deeply cynical, and he looks at his uncle's traditional spending on feasts and charity with absolute disgust.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Gyanshankar represents the transition from traditional Indian feudal paternalism to British-influenced colonial capitalism.
Break that down for us. What's the difference?
Well, under the old system, a landlord like Prabhashankar might exploit the peasants, sure.
Right.
But there was a paternalistic expectation that he would also provide charity, host feasts, and maintain the village's social fabric.
A sort of twisted social contract.
Exactly. Gyanshankar wants none of that.
So what does he want?
He wants the visible trappings of modern power, expensive carriages, fine English furniture, high social status among the colonial administrators in the city.
He wants to look like the British.
Yes, he wants to emulate them. And to acquire those things in a cash economy, you need massive amounts of liquid capital.
Which he doesn't have.
Not natively, no. Gyanshankar believes the only way to get that capital is to ruthlessly and systematically squeeze every last drop of rent out of the peasants.
So he just turns up the pressure.
He views the land purely as a revenue-generating asset, and the peasants simply as the machinery to generate that revenue.
We are watching a slow-motion civil war play out in this family's courtyard.
It's a total clash of ideologies.
You have Prabhashankar operating on this archaic economy of honor, and Gyanshankar operating on a cold, calculated economy of exploitation.
Perfectly said.
And this ideological divide even fractures Gyanshankar's own marriage.
Yes, the text notes that Gyanshankar's wife, Vidya, actually sympathizes with the old uncle.
She takes the uncle's side.
She does. She sees the inherent nobility in Prabhashankar's generosity and the utter coldness in her husband's greed.
That has to be awkward at the dinner table.
It creates a quiet but intense rift in her own home. She becomes the internal moral compass that highlights how alienated Gyanshankar has become from his own culture.
And just as this tension between the uncle and nephew is reaching a boiling point, a wildcard character enters the mix.
Oh, this changes everything.
It really does. Here's where it gets really interesting. Premshankar, who is Gyanshankar's older brother, suddenly returns.
Just out of nowhere.
Yeah, he had vanished years ago, running off to America after a dispute about his education.
Right.
Now he's back. But he hasn't returned as a conquering, wealthy elite.
No, not at all. His time in America has profoundly transformed him.
How so?
He was exposed to broader egalitarian and socialist philosophies, and it completely rewired his understanding of class and labor.
The culture shock he brings to the family is just incredible.
It's night and day.
Premshankar doesn't march into the crumbling mansion and demand his half of the silver.
Yeah.
Instead, he sets up a simple thatched hut on the edge of their property.
Right on the grounds.
Right there on the grounds.
Yeah.
And he casually talks to his family about how he survived in America.
He's very open about it.
He talks about washing dishes in hotels, cleaning tables, and even sweeping the streets to make a living.
To fully grasp how scandalous this is, we have to look at the stigma of manual labor in this specific cultural context.
Right, because sweeping streets doesn't sound scandalous to a modern ear.
No, but for a high-caste Indian landlord in the 1920s, manual labor isn't just viewed as a difficult job.
What is it viewed as?
It is seen as deeply degrading, spiritually polluting, and socially catastrophic.
Spiritually polluting, what?
Yes. By casually admitting that he swept streets, Premshankar is voluntarily adopting the social status of the lowest, most marginalized castes in his society.
It would be like a modern billionaire tech heir disappearing. And when he finally comes home, he refuses his trust fund, sets up a tent on the front lawn of the family estate, and brags about how much he learned working the midnight shift at a fast food drive-thru.
That's a great way to put it.
Gyanshankar is utterly humiliated.
He is mortified.
He is desperately trying to buy carriages to look wealthy and sophisticated to the British, and his older brother is bragging about washing dishes.
It completely destroys the family's carefully curated facade of aristocratic superiority.
It really pulls the rug out from under Gyanshankar.
It does. Premshankar represents the radical egalitarian ideas that were beginning to permeate the global consciousness in the early 20th century.
He's bringing the world back to the village.
Yes, he is trying to inject the concept of the dignity of labor into a society strictly organized by caste and feudal hierarchy.
But he doesn't just face resistance from his greedy brother.
No, the resistance comes from closer to home.
He faces a massive hurdle from the person he loves most. His wife, Shraddha.
This part is so tragic.
It is. She is deeply traditional. She had waited for him for years, behaving essentially like a devoted, grieving widow while he was gone.
She was completely loyal.
But when he finally returns, she refuses to fully accept him back into her life or even share a meal with him unless he performs a prayashchit.
Right, the prayashchit.
What exactly does that entail?
A prayashchit is a religious purification ritual. In Orthodox Hindu tradition of that era, crossing the ocean, often referred to as crossing the Black Water, was considered a grave sin.
The Black Water, just the name sounds foreboding.
It does. The belief was that leaving the sacred geography of the subcontinent severed your ties to your caste and your purity.
You leave the land, you lose your soul, essentially.
In a ritual sense, yes. To be reintegrated into society and to be allowed back into your own home, you had to be ritually purified by priests.
So Premshankar is faced with this agonizing internal conflict.
He really is torn.
He loves his wife, and he deeply respects her devotion to him over all these years, but he fundamentally philosophically refuses to compromise his intellectual principles.
He won't bend.
He views this purification ritual as pure superstition. Why should he apologize or be purified for traveling the world and learning how to work with his own hands?
Exactly. This creates a deeply tragic divide between them.
It's heartbreaking.
It really asks you to consider the profound personal cost of radical idealism.
Right.
Premshankar's rigid adherence to his principles is intellectually consistent, but it costs him the emotional intimacy he desperately wants with his wife.
It's a heavy price to pay.
It highlights how incredibly difficult it is to bridge modern progressive thought with deeply entrenched orthodox beliefs, even between two people who love each other.
And while the landlords are safely sequestered on their estates debating philosophy and religious purification, the reality on the ground for the peasants in Lakhanpur turns utterly apocalyptic.
It gets so much worse.
A plague hits the village.
The historical context here is vital. Colonial India suffered from devastating waves of plague and epidemic diseases in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
And they had no help.
None. The rural medical infrastructure was virtually non-existent. When Premchand describes the plague hitting Lakhanpur, he paints a visceral, terrifying picture of a village rapidly transforming into a graveyard.
The text notes that the everyday, comforting sounds of rural life, like the rhythmic sound of the grinding stones crushing grain in the mornings, are entirely replaced by the sounds of wailing.
It's a haunting image.
It gets so horrific that people were too terrified of infection, or simply too busy trying to survive, to even remove the dead bodies from the huts.
Complete societal breakdown.
And in this absolute crucible of human suffering, the true characters of the two brothers are exposed.
This is where we see who they really are.
We see Premshankar, the idealist, along with a sympathetic government official named Dewal Singh, actually run into the danger zone.
They go right into the village.
They risk their own lives trying to provide basic medical aid, distribute medicine, and save whoever they can. It is a dangerous, selfless act.
Now, compare that to Gyanshankar, the modern, educated landlord.
Right.
How does he react to his tenants dying en masse? He sees it as a financial opportunity.
It's sickening.
While entire families are being wiped out, Gyanshankar uses the crisis to enact forced evictions.
Wait, evicting dead people?
Basically, he sends his men to auction off the meager belongings, the pots, the pans, the surviving livestock of sick or dead peasants who miss their rent payments.
It is a chilling demonstration of colonial capitalism's total indifference to human life.
Completely indifferent.
The legal contract of rent supersedes any moral obligation or basic human empathy.
To Gyanshankar, a dead tenant is just an empty plot of land that can be rented out to someone else.
Just a line item on a spreadsheet.
And their remaining assets must be liquidated to balance his ledgers.
That economic cruelty is staggering. But the text goes further, showing how the system also relies on intense physical and psychological humiliation.
It's a multi-pronged attack.
And this brings us to one of the most enraging scenes in the novel, the humiliation of Dukram Bhagat.
This scene is very tough to read.
Dukram Bhagat, as we mentioned earlier, is one of the highly respected older village elders. During a visit by the colonial officials, he is ordered to perform Begar.
Right.
Can you break down exactly how Begar functioned?
Begar was a widespread system of forced, unpaid labor exacted by landlords and government officials from the lower classes and peasantry.
So slavery, essentially.
Essentially state-sanctioned, temporary slavery. If an official was visiting, they wouldn't pay for services. They would simply command the local villagers to carry their luggage, fetch their water, or prepare their campsites.
Just do this because I said so.
Exactly, under the threat of violence or imprisonment.
In this instance, the officials order Dukran, an elderly man, to plaster the ground with cow dung to prepare a clean seeding area for them.
It's dirty, menial work.
And Dukran politely refuses. He explains that he hasn't even performed his morning religious prayers yet.
Right.
And doing this specific manual labor would ritually defile him before his worship. He isn't being rebellious. He's asking for a basic accommodation of his religious practices.
The response from the Tahsildar, the very same official the villagers noted had grown fat on bribes, is immediate and brutal.
He doesn't even listen.
He doesn't argue with Dukran at all. He simply orders a peon to beat the elderly man with shoes.
Being beaten with a shoe in this cultural context is uniquely horrific, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is not just about the physical pain. It is the ultimate, profound degradation.
Because shoes are considered unclean.
Exactly. The shoe touches the dirt. It is considered unclean. And to strike a respected elder with it in front of his peers is designed to completely strip him of his honor and his standing in the community.
It's meant to break him.
It is psychological warfare aimed at breaking the spirit of the entire village by humiliating their leader.
The text describes Dukrin lying on the ground, spiritually broken. The cruelty is so intense, so difficult to watch, that Kadir, another respected elder, actually steps forward and begs the peon to beat him instead.
Just to spare his friend.
Just to spare Dukrin further humiliation.
When you look at the mechanics of systemic oppression, this scene is pivotal. This raises an important question. How long can a community endure this?
They can't.
They are facing economic extortion with the Ghee, the absolute terror of a deadly plague, the ruthless auctioning of the dead's property, and now the physical, public torture of their religious elders.
The pressure cooker is whistling.
The system has left them no legal recourse, no financial safety net, and no basic human dignity.
An explosion isn't just possible, it is inevitable.
It has to happen.
Which hurls us right into the climax of the narrative.
Yeah.
The tension finally explodes during the intense baking heat of June.
We were back to that opening scene.
Yes. Gyaus Khan, who acts as the cruel, boots-on-the-ground enforcer for the landlord Gyanshankar, decides to push the village past the point of no return.
In a rural agrarian society during a drought-stricken summer, access to water is life itself.
You can't live without it.
It is the absolute bottom line of survival. And Gyaus Khan deliberately blocks the villagers and their livestock from accessing the only remaining water in the village pond.
It's the weaponization of a natural resource.
Completely.
It's an act of pure malice designed to assert total, unquestionable dominance over a dying population.
And this is where the system miscalculates.
They push too far.
By threatening their literal survival, Gyaus Khan removes the final restraint. The narrative text reveals that Gyaus Khan is murdered.
Finally.
It happens off-page, shrouded in the chaos of the night, but the outcome is clear. The enforcer is dead.
But the most crucial, fascinating detail is what happens next, and specifically, the role of Manohar.
Yes.
Manohar is the man who refused to give up his Ghee at the very start of our story.
Full circle.
He goes from being a defiant but ordinary farmer to becoming the ultimate martyr for his community.
He knows what's coming.
He knows exactly how the colonial justice system works. He knows the police will use the murder of an official as an excuse to sweep into the village, arrest dozens of men, torture them, and hang them to set an example.
So Manohar takes a chilling, deliberate step.
What does he do?
He walks straight to the authorities and makes a full, unprompted confession.
Wow.
He tells them, I killed Gyaus Khan with this axe. I acted alone. String me up, but spare the village.
He takes the sole, total blame. He is voluntarily forfeiting his own life.
He does it as a calculated sacrifice to act as a shield for his neighbors. He understands that the system requires a body to punish.
They need someone to hang.
By offering his own, he is trying to satisfy the bloodlust of the state to protect his son and his friends. It is an act of profound, tragic heroism.
But the tragedy is that the justice system isn't actually interested in the truth.
Not at all.
Or even in simple retribution. It's interested in leveraging the crime to consolidate power.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Exactly. Despite Manohar's incredibly clear, detailed confession, the police and the landlords see a golden opportunity to wipe out all remaining resistance in the village.
They completely ignore his claim that he acted alone.
Of course they do.
They use the investigation to implicate several other innocent villagers, specifically targeting anyone who has shown a spark of defiance.
They're cleaning house.
This includes Manohar's own son, Balraj, and the respected elders Kadir and Bisesar.
And here we witness the ultimate betrayal. The case goes to trial, and who stands up as the star witness for the prosecution? Gyanshankar, the landlord. He testifies in court against his own villagers, ensuring they are punished purely to protect his absolute power and instill permanent terror in the region.
The corruption of the trial goes even deeper than that.
How so?
Even Gyanshankar's own brother, Premshankar, is initially arrested under suspicion of inciting the peasants with his socialist ideals.
They arrest his brother?
Yes. And how does Premshankar get out? Not through the presentation of evidence or a fair trial.
No.
He is only released because the old uncle, Prabhashankar, swallows the very last of his ancestral pride, bankrupts what little is left of the family fortune, and pays massive bribes to the officials.
Justice is literally bought and sold in the open.
Completely.
If you have the capital, you walk free. If you don't, you face the full wrath of the state.
And the verdict for the villagers is devastating.
It is. The innocent men are crushed. Balraj, the young son, and Kadir, the noble elder who offered to take a beating for his friend, are sentenced to Kalapani.
We really need to unpack what Kalapani means in this historical context.
Yeah, please do.
Because it was far more terrifying than a standard mainland prison sentence. Kalapani translates to black water, and it referred to penal transportation to the cellular jail in the Andaman Islands.
Which is located far off the coast of India in the Bay of Bengal.
Yes.
Why was it feared so much more than a mainland prison?
For several reasons. Practically, the conditions were notoriously brutal. Forced labor, disease, solitary confinement, and incredibly high mortality rates.
A death sentence, essentially.
It was designed to break political prisoners and rebels, but psychologically and culturally, it was a fate worse than death.
Because of the black water.
Yes. As we discussed with Premshankar's return from America, crossing the ocean meant a loss of caste and ritual purity.
So it's a double punishment.
Sending these traditional Hindu and Muslim villagers across the sea meant severing them from their religion, their families, and their cultural identity forever. They were essentially being erased from existence.
The other elders received 7 years of hard labor in mainland prisons. The village of Lakhanpur is left entirely hollowed out.
It's empty.
They are weeping, their leaders stripped away by a rigged, insurmountable system. It feels incredibly bleak. It feels like the machine of colonial capitalism has won entirely.
It does feel that way, but Premchand doesn't leave the narrative in total darkness.
Thank goodness.
The trauma of this event catalyzes a major shift in the story. We move into the final act, the dawn of Premashram.
The ashram of love.
Yes. This horrific tragedy deeply, fundamentally transforms Premshankar.
He realizes that holding abstract socialist ideals, reading theory, and feeling sympathy for the poor is entirely insufficient.
Theory doesn't save lives.
Exactly. Having a good philosophy doesn't stop a police baton. He decides to take concrete, radical action. On his share of the family land, he establishes Premashram, which translates to the ashram of love, or sanctuary of love.
And we must clarify, this isn't just an ideological commune where people sit around and debate.
It's not just talk.
It is a highly functional utopian agrarian project. Premshankar introduces modern scientific farming techniques.
So he applies his education.
Yes. These methods immediately double or triple the crop yields on his land.
That's a vital point. He isn't just proving a moral point, he's proving an economic one.
It's a proof of concept.
He is demonstrating that you don't need to starve the peasants, enforce Begar, or extort Ghee to make the land productive. Equitable labor actually produces more wealth.
Right.
But more importantly, Premashram becomes a true sanctuary for the victims of the system.
Premshankar actively seeks out the destitute, starving families of the villagers who are unjustly jailed.
Like Dukran's wife and Kadir's relative.
Yes. He brings them to the ashram. He provides them with food and shelter, but most importantly, he provides them with the dignity of fair labor and mutual respect.
He gives them their humanity back.
He essentially creates a micro-society based on cooperation rather than coercion.
And while Premshankar is building this paradise of labor, Premchand gives the reader this spectacularly satisfying fall of his brother, Gyanshankar.
The downfall is epic.
Gyanshankar's greed, without any moral boundaries, finally consumes him. He targets a wealthy widow named Gayatri.
Gyanshankar manipulates her by faking intense spiritual devotion.
He pretends to be holy.
He plays the role of a pious, detached holy man to gain her trust and ultimately control of her vast estate.
It's a brilliant exploration of false piety.
It really is. Premchand is showing how religion can be weaponized as a cloak to disguise extreme predatory capitalism.
But because his only skill is exploitation, his management of her estate is so ruthlessly extractive that it eventually ruins the land and breaks Gayatri's spirit.
She realizes the absolute hollowness of his devotion.
She sees through him eventually.
She recognizes that she has been used. She flees to the holy city of Haridwar to escape his psychological and financial manipulation, and she ultimately dies there.
Her death marks the completion of Gyanshankar's moral decay. His relentless pursuit of wealth and power has left him isolated, despised, and spiritually bankrupt.
The system he championed ultimately hollows him out as well.
Which brings us to the resolution of the novel, and it hinges entirely on the next generation.
Prabhashankar.
Prabhashankar, who is Gyanshankar's own son, has grown up watching all of this unfold.
He's seen it all.
He has seen his father's cruelty, and he has been quietly observing his uncle Premshankar's teachings and the living example of the Premashram.
When Mayashankar comes of age, he inherits everything.
Everything.
He inherits the vast estates of both his father and the late Gayatri. He suddenly holds absolute, unchecked feudal power.
He could be worse than his father.
He has the legal right to continue the cycle of exploitation, to demand the Ghee, to enforce the forced labor. But he makes a monumental choice.
He completely and voluntarily rejects his father's oppressive legacy.
He turns his back on it.
He embraces his uncle's ideals. He actually chooses to serve the people.
The novel details how he returns land rights to the peasants. He completely dismantles the abusive systems of arbitrary taxes and Begar.
He walks away from the power.
He effectively dissolves his own inherited power to uplift the community. The narrative concludes with the imagery of Premshankar's utopian vision finally taking firm root.
The society structured around mutual respect, shared labor, and love, rather than extraction and fear.
It is a profound ending.
We have traveled from the absolute crushing depths of rural despair to the heights of a utopian ideal. We've seen the mechanics of colonial oppression, the breaking point of the human spirit, and the radical, hopeful possibility of a better world.
It's an incredibly detailed roadmap of agrarian conflict. However, before we wrap up, we should critically examine that ending.
Okay, let's look at it.
Premchand presents Premashram and Mayashankar's choices as a utopian solution. The narrative relies on the landlord voluntarily surrendering his immense power and wealth to serve the peasants.
Right. He basically wakes up and decides to be a benevolent socialist.
Exactly. But if we look at the reality of history and systemic oppression, relying on the sudden, miraculous moral awakening of the powerful elite to willingly surrender their capital and end exploitation is incredibly rare.
It almost never happens.
It forces you to ask a really heavy question.
Which is
true social justice actually achievable through the voluntary transformation of the elite, as Premchand hopes here? Or does history show us that entrenched power never gives itself up and must always be challenged and dismantled from the ground up by the oppressed themselves?
That is an amazing, provocative question to ponder, and I would love to hear what you listening think about that dynamic.
It's definitely something to chew on.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive into Premashram. Please remember to subscribe to the Simplified Summer YouTube channel, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts on that final question in the comments below. We will catch you on the next one.